Reading is one of the best ways to soak up information and stories, but in a world where we have a never-ending supply of content on streaming services and social media to doom scroll on, we've kind of lost the ability to sit down and focus on reading a good old book. So if you want to swap some of that screen time and read more, or if you find it difficult to finish books, then stick around because in this video, I'm going to share the simple system that I'm using to read 40 books this year. For most people, we want to read more, but we don't really have a system or a plan on how to get that done. We've probably all had a New Year's resolution of saying, I want to read 12 books this year. And then we get to February and we've read one chapter of one book. Now, I think our problem isn't necessarily a lack of enthusiasm for reading. It's kind of not having a simple system that we can commit to on a consistent daily basis, which means we never really reach our goal of finishing 12 books or 15 books per year. For example, if you want to read 12 books in 1 year, then that's obviously one book per month. That strategy never really works for me, at least, because you kind of can't track where you're up to throughout the year. Some books are longer, some books are harder to comprehend, and you end up reading 2 or 3 books and then it gets to the end of the year and you don't know why you couldn't achieve your goals. I've tried this strategy for a number of years and I never really get past the 4 or 5 or 6 books per year because you can't improve what you don't measure. It's a common quote that you hear around a lot around habit formation, and it goes just as much for reading as it does for anything else in your life. So in order to achieve a lofty goal of reading 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 books, we kind of have to develop a system that we can use day in, day out that helps us slowly get to that goal. I'm not a fast reader by any means, and I don't read the most complex books that are out there, but I like to use the averages that I can find on the internet, which I'll go through in a second, to incorporate into my daily reading habits so my goals at the end of the year of achieving 40 books can actually be accomplished. So for example, with a little bit of Googling, I found that the average number of pages per book across all genres is around 300 pages, give or take. That goes for fiction and non-fiction. So if most books that I'm reading are around 300 pages, obviously some will be longer, some will be shorter, then I need to work out how much time it would take to read those 300 pages. So in this table, you can see that the average reading speed is around 300 words per minute, which is roughly around 1.7 minutes per page. So this can depend on the text formatting, of course, whether the book is a hardcover or a paperback. But again, we're working with averages here, and this calculation and formula is designed to apply to every kind of reader. So now with these two numbers, along with a yearly book goal, you can work out how many minutes you need to dedicate to your reading every day. So if this sounds a little bit confusing, don't stress, stick with me. I'm going to break down exactly how to calculate how many minutes you need to read per day using my example. So this year, my goal is to read 40 books, which will be a mix of non-fiction, business, and self-help books, along with some classic science fiction. So if each book that I want to read is around 300 pages, I multiply that by the 40 books that I want to read. So the total number of pages I need to read this year will be 12,000 pages. If I divide 12,000 pages by 365 days, that means I need to read about 33 pages per day. Now, if my average reading speed is roughly 1.7 minutes per page, I multiply that by the 33 pages I need to read, which equates to 56 minutes. So essentially, I need to read for 1 hour each day so I can hit my target of 40 books. It's a very simplified system, but it allows me to reach my yearly goal. Now, there are a few caveats to consider with this approach. Some of the numbers are simplified and rounded up, not to mention that some days I don't get a chance to read, and some days I might have to double up on weekends, for example. But it's not about creating an exact science. It's about using a simple, straightforward system using these averages. So by the end of the year, the goal is actually achievable. As I mentioned earlier, you can't improve what you don't measure. So to help me track my daily reading habits and to remember all the books that I've read throughout the year, I use an app called Bookly. I've tried a few different apps for tracking how much I read in the past, and this is by far the simplest app that I've found to use. And it's basically a reading accountability tool in a sense, and it helps me stay focused and enjoy each book that I read. When you first use the app, you can put in your yearly book goal and your daily minutes goal, which we just calculated a minute ago. And this will help keep track of all your sessions throughout the year so you know how far away from your end result you actually are. To add a book to the app is super easy. You just scan the barcode and it will add a cover art for that book as well as the number of pages. And then you simply hit start reading and that'll bring up the timer for that reading session. For me, I want to read for 1 hour each day because that's part of my system in order to reach my yearly goal. So once that 60-minute timer is up, I just press stop reading and enter in the page number. And this does two things. It acts as a bookmark. so I know exactly where to pick up the book next time that I want to start reading. And it also acts as a motivational tool. So once I've finished that reading session, it calculates my average reading speed for that entire book and will tell me how many minutes or hours it will take me at this current pace to finish the book. This is actually my favorite part of the app because it gives me a big surge of enthusiasm knowing there's only 45 minutes left to read this book. I can sit down and knock out that last little chunk of the book and get on to the next one, which means I'm moving closer and closer to my yearly goal. If you're like me and you're constantly distracted by screens and notifications, then another feature that I find really useful is the countdown timer display. So basically when you're reading in your session, you can shut your phone down, and on the actual lock screen on your phone, it presents the timer to let you know how many minutes you've been reading for during that session. So if you're ever tempted to pick up the phone and look at a latest notification, you can see that timer there, and it's kind of a prompt to let you know you're getting distracted and you should be reading, not checking your social media messages. Another thing that I love about Bookly is that there's no real social media element involved compared to things like Goodreads. I've used Goodreads in the past, and it's a very good website, of course, but I often find myself getting caught looking at reviews and comments, which takes me out of the reading experience, whereas Bookly is more of a simple interface and designed to be a tool for distraction-free reading. In saying that, it does generate infographics about the books you read and gives you data about how long it took you to read each book or how many pages you read per day, for example. And that infographic can be shared on places like Instagram or Twitter. But again, it is designed just for you and for your reading experience. Another feature in the Bookly app is the ability to save quotes or thoughts as you're reading each book. It's not really a feature that I use. I tend to highlight and make notes as I go in the actual book itself so I can revisit and summarize all my thoughts later in Notion. So if you're interested in tracking your reading, then there is a free version of the app. I think you can have up to 10 books on there at one time. Otherwise, there are paid versions where you can unlock unlimited books and even more stats and features and analytics to dive into. I'm actually really enjoying reading books at the moment. Now that I have these systems and tools in place so I can track where I'm up to, it's actually making reading a lot more enjoyable. So I might actually end up doing a bunch of different book reviews and summaries here on this channel in the future. Let me know in the comments below what your book goal is this year and what you're currently reading. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.